Hey y'all, welcome to season 2 of the Tears and Joy podcast. I'm your host, Julia Light, and I am so glad you're here. Last season on the show, I interviewed 15 leaders, dreamers, and trailblazers who are doing incredible things in the world while navigating life in their 20s with honesty and joy. This season is all about living deeply, getting vision, and shaping culture right where you are. So, we're talking to more people who are doing just that. Everyone you'll hear from on this season is in the next season of life, so out of their 20s, from founders to artists to CEOs, and we're asking the real questions about early career days and how they built a life and a career that they love, learning to dream big and be present even in the messy middles so we can all do the same. Let's jump in. Hey y'all, welcome back to the Tears and Joy podcast. Today I'm joined by Fort Worth entrepreneur Jamey Ice. Hey Jamey.
Hey!
How's it going?
Good. Coming at you from deep in the heart of Texas.
Yes.
Although we saw each other like 2 weeks ago.
We did, yes, which was so fun.
Yeah, we were up in New York, and
yes.
It was fun to connect.
It was so fun. See the girls. I used to babysit for Jamey and his family, so it was really fun to see.
Yeah, you used to do lots. You were keeping our family spinning. All things.
I did.
Yeah, fun fact, my girls both have a picture of you next to their bedside on their nightstand.
Melissa told me that when I saw y'all. She was like, the picture's not left the nightstand.
Nope, it has not. It is
so
not.
Sweet. I love them. They're the best. Yeah, that was so fun. Okay, Jamey, I'm going to read your bio so that everybody can get to know you a little bit. Because if you're from Fort Worth, you know Jamey. But if you're not, you might not yet. So I'm going to read the long bio. Because it's
the long one, you're going to read it?
You think I should?
It's long.
Okay, I'll read the short one. It's so long. But
you can do it. Follow your heart, Julia.
No, I'll read the short one.
Do whatever
so we can get to the questions. Okay.
You want to do.
Fort Worth's Jamey Ice is a serial entrepreneur and co-founder of 6th Ave LLC. He leads a diverse portfolio, including 6th Avenue Homes, offering comprehensive real estate services, and 6th Avenue Storytelling, a marketing firm specializing in business growth through storytelling. He's also at the helm of 6th Avenue Investments and 6th Avenue Lending. As a music aficionado, Jamey is the founding member and lead guitarist of the country rock band Green River Ordinance with Capitol Records. He co-founded Brood, a unique coffee shop and restaurant located in Fort Worth, Bishop, Dallas, and DFW Airport. His recent ventures include the podcast Stories with Soul, showcasing Fort Worth's influential figures, and luxury vacation rentals Casa de Ice and Casa de Camino in Santa Fe, New Mexico. Amazing! Hey, Jamey.
There we go. Hey.
So glad you're here. There's so many fun things to talk about. Okay, so first, I would love for you to tell us about, you've done so many things in your career already, and I know you probably have like lots of other ideas brewing, but in this current season, what is your vision for work, your vision overall for your vocation or what you're doing, kind of what you're focused on, what you're excited about?
That is a good question because I feel like I'm figuring it out.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, as you can tell from my bio, I have not been a one-career, one-trick pony. I don't know, is that the right analogy?
Yeah.
And so I just turned 40, like back in November, and I feel like I'm still figuring it out. I feel like I'm having a little bit of a 40 life crisis, where I would say I'm someone who has always chased curiosity. That sounds fun. That sounds interesting. And I feel like I'm in a season where, I don't know, I think there's going to be a next thing, and I don't know what that is. But also, I'm also in a season where I'm craving a bit more simplicity. And I know we're going to talk about 20s and what you do in your 20s and 30s and things like that. And I feel like, I don't know, 40s, I feel like I'm supposed to do something that's going to look a little different. But I also feel like whatever it is, I want a little bit less hustle. I feel like my life has been a lot of hustle. And so I don't know. So currently I spend most of my time at 6th Ave storytelling. I'm doing some more in sort of the vacation rental space. One of the things I'm wanting to do this year is a little more like business coaching and consulting.
Okay.
Because we do a lot of, I do a lot of like coaching, consulting on the marketing side.
Yeah.
How do entrepreneurs grow their brands, how do entrepreneurs grow their business. But I also just get like entrepreneurs also are like, they feel stuck organizationally, they feel stuck personally.
Yes.
And I don't know, I was a philosophy major in college. I also like, there's a profile assessment tool that we use at Sixth Avenue called Culture Index, and I'm a philosopher there. Meaning, I just love ideas. I read a ton, I study a ton, and so I don't know. So two things I'm excited about more is like doing more luxury vacation rentals, helping businesses continue to grow and market, but also like how do I help in terms of coaching, accountability, helping people kind of become who they want to become. And just organizational leadership as well is something I kind of want to dabble in. Anyways, and I have some few more. So I don't know what my next thing is. I don't know what the future holds. I'm soul searching a little bit. But most of my day-to-day right now is Sixth Ave Storytelling, which is our marketing company.
Okay, amazing.
Long-winded answer.
No, that's perfect. That's
question.
Good. And it's good to hear that, you can do a bunch of cool things and still be like, I don't know. What should be next?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Me and Melissa, my wife, have been talking about that a lot.
Yeah.
Like what's our next season as a couple?
Oh, that's so exciting though. So you and your businesses and your family and all the things you've kind of started and done, you've made huge impacts on Fort Worth and really just the culture of the city. What is your vision like for how you want as an entrepreneur to shape the city you're in, and how did you come to get that kind of a vision?
Yeah, I don't know that it was as intentional. Maybe it became more intentional. I don't know that it was on my radar, especially like necessarily in my early 20s. It wasn't like something I'm thinking about. How do I shape my city? But I feel like now it has been. So we have a family mission statement, and our mission statement is the ISIS are a family given grace by God to love our neighbors, dream big, shape our city, and always be for each other. So it is like, we intentionally said this is our mission, but in back in probably like 2010, 2011, my wife and I got married. I think we got married in 2008 or 9. I don't know when it was, but I was traveling and playing music. Melissa was working at a church in Fort Worth. She was from Dallas, and she always said, Fort Worth is too small of a town, and so we were looking at moving. She was interviewing in Austin. We were either going to move to LA, Nashville, or Austin.
Oh, wow.
And so we were looking at houses in Austin. She got a job offer in Austin. And so much of our conversations were around Fort Worth still feels like a small town. Now, I caveat that with Fort Worth is now currently like the 12th, 13th largest city in America. It has grown a ton. It's changed a ton. It's a very different environment than it was. But a lot of it was like there was just the restaurants were chain restaurants. It was just didn't have the nightlife and the excitement and the culture that Austin, LA, Nashville, Dallas had. Totally. And so we had all these conversations like, I wish there was more here. Let's move to Austin. And both of us at one point we were praying about that. Should we do it? Should we not do it? And both of us kind of together felt like God was like, you're supposed to stay here. And instead of treating your city like a consumer, what can I get from it? What if you change your attitude to what can we bring to the city? So we kind of had this like epiphany, so to speak, of like God calling us to stay here. And instead of, don't take from the city, what can we contribute? And so it was right around then we bought an old house, and we were like, let's open. We're complaining about the restaurants. Let's open up a restaurant. We're complaining about the neighborhood. Let's double down on that. And so there was some intent. Let's open up a nonprofit. She kind of wanted to do that. And so really did kind of have just felt like an epiphany, God telling us to do something, which may sound over spiritual, coupled with let's make an active choice of what can we do to make our city better. And so I think now the vision is like, part of my legacy is I want to leave the city better than when I found it, for whatever that means. I don't think we're directly responsible for all these things, but I feel like we've gotten to play a role and sort of making it what it is today and take
Yes.
take an active participation in it.
Totally. Yeah, that's so awesome. Yeah, and I feel like it takes like those pioneering entrepreneurs to show other people like, oh, I could start a business or like I could start a nonprofit. And obviously you're not the first people to ever do that, but I feel like when I moved to Fort Worth in 2018, like that culture was very much present of like cool restaurants, new businesses, like small businesses seemed very much thriving.
Yeah, and it's a
Yeah.
very different environment now. But I also think like part of it comes from I'm a big believer in having an identity that you speak to yourself and speak over yourself and that you believe explicitly out loud. That's prescriptive more than descriptive. I feel like we kind of had this prescriptive identity of we want to make the city better than we found it, or we're the type of people to do this.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And so I think even like in our family mission, like I just said a second ago, it's like that's a thing that we believe and say about ourselves.
Right.
And so we're going to actively try to do things in that realm.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
No, that makes so much sense. And yeah, that's really good. Like speaking it before it's even necessarily realized, like to get yourself there.
Yeah.
And he talks about that in Atomic Habits too, of like you're going to do habits that fall under your identity. So choose an identity that has the habits that you want.
Yeah, I'm the type of person that wakes up early. It's like, a lot of days I don't want to do that, but I say that about myself. Like,
but it's the type of person you are, so you have to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think just identity and vision and mission, all those things leak. It's like a leaky tire, and you have to pump it up constantly. And so I think just, having those things that you say prescriptively about yourself, there's an element of like, okay, I'm going to take action to do that, because it doesn't happen on accident.
Totally. Yeah, that's really good. And you guys have it like on your fridge, right? In the kitchen? Your family mission statement?
Yeah, we have it. And I even have like, this is like a little, I don't know if you can see it. These are like
that's so good.
Jamey's daily declarations, which is just a bunch of
I love that.
Of statements that so I have this like printed off, and I have it I have like one on my desk right now. It's in my Bible. It's in my car. It's in my...
that's so smart.
Because a lot of times I don't believe these things, right? But having them visible it's pumping up that tire, so to speak.
That's so good. Wow. Wait, can you read a couple for those who are just listening on audio? Like maybe your favorite one or two? It's like a cool, like 4x6, like printed card that looks super awesome. If you can picture it in your head.
Yeah, I mean, and I probably have more than you need. And they're very personal. I probably spent a couple of years working on these and refining.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, whatever you want to share, no pressure.
Yeah, I know who I am. A lot of these are very spiritual. I'm loved and accepted and adopted by God. I fear God more than man. I love my wife, will lay down my life to serve her. I nurture, equip, and empower my children to love and know God. I grow daily stronger, smarter, and more selfless. I have courage and do hard things. I'm content. I have everything I want and need. I have self-control. Christ in me is stronger than the wrong desires in me. I choose joy. I create energy and bring energy into any room I am in. I care about my health. I command my body and am not at its mercy. I'm creative, innovative, driven, and focused. I'm committed to habits that help me flourish. I am a philosopher, curious about myself, others, and the world around me. I wake up with purpose, direction, and meaning every day of my life. I'm present with whoever I am with. I prioritize quality time with the people I love. I have enough time in my day because I schedule what is important and am not at the mercy of urgent. I'm a spiritual contributor, not a spiritual consumer. I shape culture. I'm an industry changer, and I will leave this world different and better than I found it.
Wow. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And that's one of our taglines for the podcast this season is learning about how to shape culture. So
really?
That's perfect. Yeah. Because I want like people my age to get a vision for that, Yeah.
And I think so much of like what you're doing, when we talk about shaping culture and what does that mean, it's like the best way to shape culture is the arts. It's like the arts shapes culture far more than politics,
Right.
And so even what you're doing and doing this, like those are things that shape and influence culture.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, as the leader of a bunch of people in your organizations, like what is your vision for the people on your team? Like how do you want them to feel? How do you want them to grow? Like do you have like a mission statement for that for yourself as a boss or a CEO?
Yeah, I mean, there's nuance to that. My vision, there's two different things. There's a vision for them as like people, and then there's a vision of like what does the team need, the organization need,
Mm-hmm.
and sometimes those are in line together, and sometimes they're not.
Mm.
And so, I've the other thing is people have their own goals, agendas. You can't shape that, and I've kind of learned like I can't project my stuff on people. But I
Yeah.
will say one of the things we talk about, and it was in my core, like one of our core values at Sixth Avenue is um, we believe in daily growing stronger, smarter, and more selfless, which is also in my
Mm.
declarations. And so
Love
it's like
that.
I want people on my team who want to grow. And another one of our core values is we keep our team small and curated, always partnering with the right people.
Mm.
Meaning it's a team, it's not a family. You can't fire your family, but sometimes on a team, it's like you got to earn the right. Sometimes people are great for a season,
Yeah.
and then they get traded.
Mm-hmm.
But what I tell everybody is like at the end of the day, I want you to leave here better than when you came. And I don't
Yeah.
have, I know you may be here 6 months, you may be here 5 years. Um, but at the end of the day, I want you to have grown on some level. And so I want to be around people who want to grow. I want you to grow. Um, and I think there's also a humility to that. Like part of like wanting to grow is also saying I've not arrived.
Mm.
I'm not where I want to be. And so there's a humility of like learning, growth, seeking those things. So I think part of a vision is like I want them to grow, I want them to learn, but I also want you to like work really hard
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
push the ship forward.
Totally. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, speaking of seeking to grow, can you give us like a short 5 minute origin story of your life? So we talked about like your vision, what you're up to now, but not your whole life, but your 20s specifically, like early career days. What were you up to, and how did that lead to what you're doing now? Like, yeah, how did you spend your early adulthood?
Yeah, so I played music professionally for 16 years.
Okay.
And so as a kid, I grew up in Fort Worth, lived in a 3 mile radius my entire life. And I, as a kid, I was terrible at sports. I like could not throw a ball or
Me
catch a
too.
ball. My grandpa at one point thought I needed glasses because I like couldn't play baseball. So my parents at one point bought me a guitar. I'm thinking like sixth grade, and
Okay.
my brother was the same way. He was terrible, and so they bought us guitars and took guitar lessons. And I wasn't good. I wasn't like a natural at it by any
Yeah.
means, but it was just kind of became my thing. We played Sweet Home Alabama in our middle school talent
Oh.
show, and then we started Green River Ordinance when I was 15, and my
Oh,
little brother
wow.
Jeff was 13. So we
Oh my
played.
gosh. So
So we
young.
were young. Started writing songs, and we'd be
Oh.
playing. My mom would drive us in her minivan to bars. But so all that being said, I went to TCU. We all went
Hmm.
to college together, and then we started playing a lot in college. So we sometimes playing like 3-4 nights a week.
Oh, wow.
Um,
Yeah, that's a lot.
it was a lot. So we were like on a Wednesday night playing in Lubbock or
Oh my
College
gosh.
Station. Coming
Whoa.
back, so grades started going downhill a little bit,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, when we were like, we want to be rock stars. We don't. It started to become demotivated,
Yeah.
um, and at some point, like I think my junior year of college, my mom entered us. She like submitted our CD to Mix 1029. They had this contest to open for Bon Jovi at American Airlines Center.
Oh my gosh.
And anyway, so we win this contest and we open for Bon Jovi in front of
That's so
20,000
cool.
people.
Oh my gosh.
And the next morning, I'm back in class, and I'm like, oh, I don't want to do this.
That's
So,
crazy.
so all that being said, so when I was 20, what would have been my senior year of college, we went to our parents and said, hey, we want to take a year off and travel the country and try giving this a go. And so all of our parents kind of collectively said, sure, we support you, we love you, but you're cut off and you have 1 year. And if you don't have a record deal in a year, you have to quit the band and go back to school and finish.
Whoa.
So long story short, we bought a van with a credit card and we started traveling. So we started traveling and playing music, and then signed with Capitol Records when I was like 21.
Wow.
And then spent probably from 2007 or 8 to 2015, 2016, traveling around the country playing music. So we had, and it was a weird time for music. It was like just as, like we came out the gate and we were kind of this pop rock genre, which doesn't exist anymore. It was like, think of like the Fray and Matchbox 20.
Yes.
And, kind of soft pop. We weren't like cool enough to be indie alternative. And
right.
So that kind of genre was dying, but we had a couple, not huge hits, but like songs on the radio in that genre. And then we kind of transitioned to, what was funny was our singer grew up playing country music. And when we signed the record label, we kind of had these Southern country things. And the record label was like, we don't like the country stuff. You're going to be the next Matchbox 20. And so we had an album on Capitol, songs on the radio, toured, and then wound up getting out of our deal and immediately released this EP of songs that the record label didn't like. And one of those was a song called Dancing Shoes, which is like a kind of a country song.
Okay.
We released that, and then next thing you know, country radio started playing it. And it was like the biggest. We sold more albums from that than we did on Capitol, and kind of took this foray into Texas country, Americana. Yeah. So anyways, so spent most of my 20s just on the road playing music. So my first year of marriage, I was gone 312 days. So we would play anywhere between 200, 250, 150 days a year traveling and playing music. So origin story, but also like I tell people I became an entrepreneur at the age of 20 because we're supporting ourselves with our music, and we made a ton of mistakes. We learned a lot of lessons, but for very and it was the poorest I've ever been was when my parents cut us off.
Yeah.
But it was amazing. It was so much fun. So played music for a long time. As we started touring a little less, we would have breaks, and I started flipping houses kind of as a side hustle.
And was that that was after you guys had your moment of like, okay, we feel like we're supposed to stay in Fort Worth and like commit?
Yeah. Okay. So that was so a bunch of the rest of the band moved to Nashville, and me and Melissa stayed. And we had just bought our first house. We didn't have hardly any money. And Melissa at the time was like, this is a very Melissa story, but Melissa, my wife, was like, we don't have any friends. All our friends look like us, and we don't have any friends who are poor. Like we don't. So we started on the weekends just going to this street called Lancaster where all the homeless people live and just hanging out and made all these friends. And so Saturdays, that's what we do every morning. And then we started taking college students down there. And then she eventually started a nonprofit. But one of the guys we met was this homeless man named Carl. And we just bought a house, and it was like from the 70s, yellow shag carpet.
Oh, fun.
I couldn't afford a contractor. But Carl was like, I used to be a contractor. I can teach you how to remodel it. So I bought Carl a bus pass, and he came over to my house every day, and he taught me we remodeled the whole house, taught me how to do sheetrock and lay floors. So bought a house, remodeled a house, bought a house, remodeled a house. And then, and then one day me and my best friend, Jamey, were like, we should flip a house. And so we didn't have any money. And long story short, we figured out if you could borrow money without having any money by paying really, really, really high interest. So anyways, we bought a house, remodeled ourselves, and sold it in 90 days. And we're like, this is awesome. You can buy houses without having any money. And we bought like 6 houses that summer.
Oh my gosh.
And then anyways, wound up buying and rehabbing like 100-something properties in our neighborhood.
That's amazing.
And then that turned into a real estate company, and went on to do other things. But that's
incredible.
the
Oh my
long,
gosh.
the long origin story.
Okay, I love that. That's so awesome.
So I was like touring, and then when I wasn't touring, I was home. I was remodeling houses.
Yeah. Okay. Amazing. And did you have any crazy stories in there of this process? Like, obviously, everyone's still in process, but like things that happen that you just like can't explain that you're like, my life would be so different if this like crazy like coincidence or God story hadn't happened. Does anything come to mind?
Yeah, I mean, all of from meeting the homeless guy who taught me how to
Well,
remodel
yeah. Yeah.
to buying our first house. I mean, so much of it. I think one of the things a concept I love is this idea of who luck, meaning who people like who are you, who luck, and even like the guys in the band that I met when I was 13 and 15 like changed the course of my life. And then
Yeah.
my business partner Jimmy, who I own Sixth Avenue Homes and Sixth Avenue Storytelling with, like when I was 17, my parents made me go on this mission trip to Guatemala, and we were roommates on this mission trip in Guatemala. He was like this jock that went to the country high school. I'm like this long-haired kid wearing girl jeans because that was like a thing.
Totally. Yeah.
Musician. Anyways, we became friends, and then we started business. So I think it's a lot of like the people you meet are crazy in and of themselves. I mean, one of the reasons we got signed was we opened for this band at the Ridgely Theater called Collective Soul, which was a big 90s band. And the singer like watched our show, and then afterwards he was like, "You guys are my new favorite band. I'm calling my old record label." So he calls his old record A&R guy, and he's like, "You should sign these guys." And then they flew us to New York. And I mean, there's a million of those things. You know, I don't. You have to create your own luck. You got to show up. You got to work hard.
Yes.
You create opportunities, but also like, man, sometimes things happen, and you got to kind of seize it when it does happen.
Yeah.
So
that's so true.
I have 100 million of those
right.
crazy stories.
Totally. And it's so good to look back at like, wow, if I hadn't been there at this moment. I have been thinking about that this week, even with friends that I have that are from Texas but in New York now. I'm like, if I hadn't met this friend when I was 17, like I think my whole life would be different. You know, it's just so cool to think about.
Yeah, the people you meet, you can't control that. I mean, you can put yourself in the room,
right?
But it's like those relationships have sometimes just as big of an impact as the things that you do.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, on that note, is there anything that you started doing during your 20s or early career days that you look back on and you're like, oh, I'm so glad that I did that, or like I still have this habit today, or that led to this, like something that you're like, that was a really good use of like early adulthood, and I'm really glad that I did that.
Yeah, I think there's a few things. So 20s, because how old are you?
I'm 24, almost 25.
24. You're 24? I thought you were older than that. Oh my gosh.
Really? Oh, thank you.
Yeah. The beautiful thing about your 20s is you just don't have responsibility.
Yeah.
I mean, you do. You got to pay the rent, but it's like it's dramatically different than having a spouse and having kids. Like you can lose everything and you can be fine. The things to like, it's just different. And so I think one of the things we did in our 20s was like, man, we bet it all and risked it all a lot of times. And I think part of where I'm at today is because I was like, I didn't have a fear of failure as much. And so I think, you know, I also had a high risk tolerance. And part of it was because I, again, going back to identity, I believe like God loves me. God is in control. He has a plan for me. I always talked about feeling like I have a lotto ticket in my pocket. I know the end is good and I can't mess it up. So whatever happens here, I can't screw it up. I'm going to be fine. And when you're 20, you really can. Having, you know, a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old is very different.
Very different.
So I think not being afraid you get one life, and not being afraid to take the risk to chase things that are interesting or that you want to do. is one thing. Like, man, but bet it all and do it. Pack up and move to New York. Don't. What's the worst that can happen?
Literally, yeah.
There's and it's like, it's kind of like, again, going back to lotto. It's like, you don't win if you don't win if you don't play.
Right.
And so I felt like I did that. We and sometimes it didn't work, but and the other thing in my 20s is I think is really applicable now is we would have a lot of downtime in the van or in the bus because we're constantly driving from city to city, and it became really, really easy to open up a laptop and watch a movie. Or now, it was kind of pre-social media. Like, now it's so easy to just pull up your phone and numb yourself with consuming media.
Yeah.
And in my 20s, I was like, I made the active choice of, I'm going to read during that time. I want to I have this unique time where I'm in a car and I'm going to study and read and learn and grow. And so I spent a lot of time reading. Fiction, nonfiction, self-help, bios, spiritual things.
Yeah.
But a lot of that I also like. Yeah. So I think that was a habit that I still take today of, like, I want to grow, I want to learn how to think, I want to be better.
Yeah.
So I would say doing that, and also just put yourself out there. Don't being afraid to ask.
Yeah.
Putting yourself in the room. And one of my favorite things someone ever said to me was, like, if you're in the room, if you're invited in, you better show up. And so not being afraid to go knock on doors and knock on, like,
yeah.
And I had to learn that with the band. You have to create your own opportunity. So I think 20s, like, take those risks, chase things that are interesting, bet on yourself, and don't be afraid of failure. Because even when you do fail, like, you learn. That's, like, my biggest failures in my 20s are probably some of the things that made me who I am now. They were really hard in the moment, but I'm like, I look back fondly and sweetly because it shaped my character and taught me how to think and taught me business. So yeah. Yeah.
That's really good. That's really, really good. Have you ever read The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron? Do you know that book? Okay. A friend and I, like, lead groups through it here in the city. And that's, like, a big thing we talked about with The Artist's Way is, like, okay, if, like, if God is for me, or if, like, for some, like, the universe is for me, like, we should take more risks. Like, if it all bends towards good, like, we can take more risks. And that was just, like, a cool thing that we talked about. And
you know the end. I remember I was in an existentialism class in studying philosophy. And existentialism is the whole idea that existence precedes essence. Meaning, you exist, you're born, there's no meaning, so you create your own meaning. And the whole concept is, like, life is sort of meaningless, which gives you freedom. If life is meaningless, it gives you freedom. And I had this argument with my existentialism professor, and he was like, "It gives you freedom." And I was like, "Well, that sounds depressing."
Yeah.
Like, maybe that gives you freedom, but I was like, you know what gives you way more freedom is knowing there is meaning, and God loves you, and He's for you, and created you with purpose, and you can't mess it up. If love is unconditional, you can't mess it up. You got a lot up to in your pocket. That's a way better freedom. I have a better freedom than you do. And I don't know, I really took that to heart. I was like, man, I want to be a rock star. And so, like, we're going to do that.
And you did it. Yeah.
We're going to risk it all and do that. And there's been a handful of times where it's like, I don't know how to do this, but we're going to go for it because I have the freedom to do that.
Totally. And, like, if you take, like, a tiny step, you're not really seeing if something's working. You know, if you, like, dip your toe in something, you're like, never mind. It's better to just, like, jump in and be like, okay, it has to work, or we're going to figure it out.
Yeah.
Versus,
and that becomes, it's very different once you have, like, a mortgage and children.
Right. Yeah. So it's kind of, nice in a way to not have those things. Okay. So speaking of your family, Melissa's actually going to be on the podcast too. I just confirmed the date, which I'm so excited for. But you guys are both visionary entrepreneurs. Melissa founded The Net, which is an amazing nonprofit in Fort Worth. Did you have any idea when you guys met? Because you guys met pretty young, right? Like, did you have any idea that you would both be, like, starting companies and organizations and, like, impacting the place where you live so much together? Like,
No. I mean, I think one of the things that attracted each other to each other, I was attracted to her. Like, we were both really driven and opinionated.
Yeah.
I dated a lot before her. I was like a serial, had bad dating habits, but I was constantly getting bored. And then I met her, and I'm like, she's a firecracker.
Yeah.
And so I think we both, like, even like when we go on date nights, we wind up talking about jobs and the things we both have big dreams and have
Yeah.
always that's always been probably our biggest connecting point.
Mm.
The converse of that is we both have like big dreams and big opinion. Like, neither of us doesn't ever not have an opinion. so,
Right.
and so that can make for hard. It's high highs and low lows.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't think we ever had an idea. I don't think we didn't see ourselves as like, we're entrepreneurs who are going to start companies. I think we were both just, we were dreamers and we were ambitious. And we also, I think we both didn't settle. We questioned. Yeah. We also kind of marched to the beat of our own drums. I think we always both had we're going to do our own thing, our own way.
Right.
Arrogance and naivety. But yeah, I don't know that either of us, could not imagine what I'm doing right now.
Right.
So.
Yeah, but you had that that drive and that like vision at the time, or that's really cool.
I needed a type of woman who would like call me out and challenge me and push me. And she does that.
Yeah.
And sometimes I love it, and sometimes I hate it, and sometimes I love it.
Yeah. That's awesome. How does, I guess, being these like intense visionary dreamers and just like the work that you guys are doing, like how does that impact the way that you raise your family, or like the vision that you have for like how you want your kids to grow up?
How does it impact?
Yeah, like how has that formed your vision? Yeah, for family.
Yeah, I think I think when you look at whatever your superpower is, it's generally also your Achilles heel. And so my superpower is like, I love starting things. I'm a dreamer. I want to go, 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 go. The flip side of that is I'm also have a really hard time being present and being grateful.
Okay.
And not doing. I am a doer.
Yeah.
Which is my superpower. And also like a fault. Because when you have desire, it's hard to have a desire and be grateful at the same time. If you're thinking about, I want this thing, and I'm constantly I live in the future a lot.
Yeah.
And so at home, that can be a problem. I am having to learn how to be more present and with the kids' level and not do and not work and not, that's a muscle I have to work out. The flip side of that is I also like want to teach our kids to dream and to be creative and to explore and to have autonomy. And I'm someone, I like control. And so I want to control things, but I also want them to have the freedom. So it's like, anyways, it's this balance of like autonomy and trying to be present, but also not doing and not. So it plays. It's complicated because it's a superpower and it's an Achilles heel, but I also want to cultivate that in them. And our oldest daughter is like, she's like me and Melissa times 10. She is so strong-willed. And it drives me crazy, but I'm also like, but she's gonna be a badass.
Yep. Yeah.
It drives me bonkers.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's cool to be aware of, like how your strength can also be your Achilles heel.
Yeah, I think it's always the case. Whatever your superpower is, it's also your downfall.
Yeah. Yeah. Really.
Because like if I was to ask you what your superpower is, what would you say?
Definitely ideas, and I feel like doing a bunch of different things, like having a bunch of ideas and being able to like move forward on them. But then it's like I look at my schedule, I'm like, you have 10 top priorities. Like, I feel like
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
my
Uh-huh.
yeah. So yeah, it's a problem sometimes because it's like we need to focus, which actually takes me into my next question because I was curious to ask you about this. Because you have like multiple different businesses and you have a family, and I feel like you guys are just so involved in everything happening in the city. Like, what lessons have you learned by this season of life about like focus, prioritization, like how much is too much versus like what's like a fun amount of variety and ideas in your life? Like, yeah, I'm really curious any thoughts you have on that.
Yeah, and again, superpower and Achilles heel. It's
Right,
like
right.
it's both. So, what one of our couple thoughts on that. I think the first is like one of our core values at Sixth Avenue is the idea of prioritize and execute, meaning a yes to one thing is always a no to something else.
Mm-hmm.
And part of your job as a leader is to prioritize because you can't do everything all at once. And so you're constantly having to say, what's the most important thing? Our default is to focus on the urgent things at the expense
Yep.
of the important things. And so you're constantly having to say, what's important? What do I swing into? So I think that's I'm constantly like, where do I evaluating where I spend my time on?
Yeah.
Meaning I don't have a plan. I'm constantly having to say for the week, what do I intentionally need to focus on? That's the biggest priority.
Totally.
So I'm thinking, and also when people feel overwhelmed, you're like, I feel so stressed and overwhelmed. People come to me and say that, and I'm like, the solution is always let's look at everything you got to do and prioritize the most important.
Yeah.
Conversely, I think balance is a myth. There's no such thing as balance, a perfect family life balance or health whatever it is. It's like I'm just believing in whatever it is you're doing that is the priority that you've actively chosen to be the priority, not passively swinging really, really hard into that. So when you launch a business, you're swinging really hard into that.
Right.
And if I'm on vacation, I'm going to swing really hard out of work
Yes.
and I'm going to be MIA. And so sometimes I have seasons where I'm like swinging into a project or really hard into work at the expense of family. And sometimes I'm swinging really hard into family at the expense of work. But you can't do it all at the same time. And so actively choosing a thing at the expense of the other thing and then swinging really hard into it. Like, and some nights starting things, like if I'm launching a business or launching a thing, it's like sometimes I may be working till midnight or I get up a lot at 3 a.m. and I have to, because it's like there's no, you got to swing really hard into it. You got to make it. The time doesn't go away. Conversely, when I'm with family or on the weekends, will delete email and Safari and I turn off everything on my phone.
Yeah.
So that I can't access. I'm like swinging way hard out the other side versus trying to balance it. So
okay, that's cool.
Seasons for one thing, seasons for another thing, but I think you have to be an active participant in prioritizing them, and then whatever that is, you swing, you give it all you got.
That's good. And do you guys have a rhythm of Sabbath as a family or something? Have there been any helpful rhythms in that, in like balancing family with like starting so many things?
I mean, so like I generally take the kids to school every day, no matter what.
That's awesome.
I do that, and then I'm generally home by like 5:30 every night, and I used to have my phone set up to where at 5:30 p.m. Instagram, Facebook, Safari, and my mail was shut off. There's like awesome. a setting in screen time, and Melissa had the code.
That's good.
But often on the weekends, I'll like delete all those. I'll delete Slack. When I go on vacation, I'll delete all those.
Yeah.
And so I feel like I'm home by 5:30, but then sometimes I'll put the kids down and I'll have to work really late or I'll wake up really early. So I think those, again, like when I'm home and with the kids, I'm going to be with the kids. When we're on vacation, I'm going to be with them. So I think just the rhythm is probably just swinging in hard to whatever it is, the place I'm supposed to be. Yeah.
That's really cool. I love that. Yeah. And we definitely I've noticed that so much with like my phone, just like meeting boundaries. I'm like, if it's there, I'm going to open my email. I don't know why.
Yeah.
Don't know why it seems fun to me to check my email on a Saturday when no one's emailing me. But
just
that's
delete
smart. Just delete it. Just get it out of there. That's so good. Okay. Is there anything about the process of starting a business, since you've like literally started so many things, that you're like, I make sure to do this thing every time? And obviously every business is going to be different, but anything about that, like incubating idea to starting time, that you're like, this has been so helpful, I always do this?
That's a good question. I mean, I would say so much of what we do at 6F Storytelling is that, because part of why I created this company was I felt like there's no blueprint or framework or plan for growing a small business. Like if you go to business school, they teach you finance and all, like, which is even marketing classes is very different. Marketing for a big corporation versus like an ice cream shop or a restaurant. And so we have 6 Avenue Storytelling. I've developed a framework. I call it the storytelling pathway. It's like everything I think a small business needs to build a brand and grow a brand. And it's a checklist and a framework. You can get it for free. If you go to 6Ave, number 6, THAVE, storytelling.com/free. I have like my framework. And so
I'll link it in the description.
Yeah. So I think there's things in there. I do think when you're starting, I think getting the story right is the most important thing. The pitch. How do I talk about it? How do I sell about it? What's the story we're telling? And there's a self-fulfilling prophecy with words. Almost every business I've started, we kind of, here's a problem, here's an idea, and we spent a lot of time, what's the pitch? What is this going to be? And writing that on paper. And then also, why am I doing this? What's the mission, vision, values? The fluffy stuff, getting really clear on that, because you can figure out how. And so from the real estate company, the real estate brokerage, the construction company, I've started a title company, I've started a marketing company, started event venue, started like every single one of those. I had no idea how to do it, but we were really intentional with like, why are we doing it? What's it going to be? What's the vision? What's the pitch? I can't tell you how many things I've like sold that I have no idea how to even execute, but I've like have this idea in my head and I can pitch you and sell you on it. This is why we need it. Yeah, and tell you the story, because you can figure out how to do something. So, and I think I kind of have a marketing blueprint that's, I would argue, kind of works for all small businesses and entrepreneurs, but
That's so awesome. Wait, I love that. The why, and you'll figure out the how. That is like not really what I was expecting you to say, but that makes so much sense. That's so cool. Wow. Okay. You mentioned before that you like live in the future and struggle to be present, but something that we're also wanting to talk about more on this season of the podcast is like, how do we be present in life, whether that's like early 20s and waiting for kind of like career stuff to pan out, or like when you're already well into your career, family life. Like, have there been any practices that help you to live more deeply or be present in the midst of the busyness of life?
Sorry, I just hit my desk.
Totally fine.
I knocked off my light. I would say I must have unplugged it. Solitude is probably the most important piece. I think just like getting alone to think and journal and pray. I mean, I think if you want to be present, it's hard to be present unless you're thinking, I need to be present.
Right.
And having space where I'm not going to have my phone and I'm going to think and pray and meditate, fill my mind up again, like pump up the leaky tire with truth.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the biggest one, because you're not just going to like, I'm busy, we're doing all these things and I'm going to show up, unless you like have alone time to wrestle with, am I who I want to be? Are my habits serving who I want to be? Am I showing up if you're not asking yourself that, reflecting. And so I think, that's probably the biggest one. I try to have solitude in the morning. I try to wake up
Mm-hmm.
and have some time reflection journaling. And then at night, I put my phone in the bathroom. And before I go to bed, I try to read something and journal and reflect.
Yeah.
What am I grateful for today? What did I learn today? Meaning, what mistakes did I make today? And kind of sometimes, for a long time, I used to do this thing, and where I would rate my day on a scale.
Oh.
I had these like as a father, as a husband, as a leader.
Oh, wow.
In the spirit, and I would like give myself a number rating because it forces you to reflect and evaluate.
Right.
And inadvertently, if you're someone like me and you who's doing a lot of things,
Yeah.
like some people don't struggle with presence. I have lots of friends who are just like chill and there, and
I admire that so much in people.
Yeah.
I'm like, wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, but if you're having solitude and reflecting, I think you will.
Yeah, that's really good. Really good. And to start and end the day. And yeah, reflecting, that's so good.
But that requires putting your phone down. Like the phone is the enemy of intentionality.
That's so true. That's a word. Yeah. The phone is the enemy of intentionality. Because it does. You just like are scrolling and you don't know why. And then you're like, whoa, what am I doing here? Yeah. That's really good. Okay. Last question. You talked about like wanting to leave your city better. That's kind of like your vision. But I guess more specifically, like what do you hope is the impact of your life? And yeah, if you could hear like someone's interviewing people around like Fort Worth or like people that were impacted by you in 20 years, like what is your hope for that?
I mean, I think I don't know. I don't know that I have like a grand. I think the people that knew us, they would say we left it better than we found it. But I think maybe as I've gotten older, it's also shrunk. I think when 20s, 30s, we had a grander. We want to do this.
Yeah.
I want to make it. I think at 40 with kids, I'm like, I just want my kids to love us and for them to chase their dreams. It's kind of come down more to that. I think probably in a season of like wanting a little less.
Yeah, totally.
Citywide change and things. But yeah. Even I don't know if I've told anybody this. But even like last a few months ago, I got asked by a bunch of people to run for city office.
Oh, cool.
For some different reasons. And some people are like, we'll pay for the campaign. We want you to run for city office. And I was like, man, my gut reaction is that sounds really fun.
Yeah.
I just kind of joked about that. I'm like, I would be great at that.
You would. Yeah.
But then evaluating, I'm like, this is not the season for that. This season is like, I got these young girls. I want less. And so really wrestled for like 2 or 3 months. Do I do this? Do I not do this? Do I put it out? And so kind of intentionally said like, I'm not going to do that. My priority right now is like these kiddos and steward, being obedient to the things I have in hand right now.
Yeah. That's really good. I love that. And cool to even think about like how there's a season for everything. Like one season of life, it's like say yes to every opportunity, like be bold, make those opportunities. And then other seasons of life, it's like, no, focus on like the things you have now and like what's most important. Yeah.
In your 20s, say yes to everything. Forget rest. Forget. Just say yes. Go like now is the time to go travel 300 days a year and just do it. Like slow down later.
Yeah.
This is 20s is your time to do that. Take advantage of that.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Wow. Thanks so much, Jamey. This was so fun.
Yeah,
we can find you. Oh yeah, of course. It's an honor. We can find you on Instagram. I'll link everything that you put in the description, but you guys are like awesome at updating your social media. I feel like so you can always follow along with your adventures.
Follow along. Just Google Jamey Ice. Ice like ice.
And you can listen to his podcast. It's super awesome.
It was fun.
Yeah.
Well, Julia, thanks for having me. This was good questions. Good.
Thank you.
Good stuff.
Thanks for tuning in, friends. Be sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, follow us on Substack and Instagram, and send this episode to a friend who you know will love it. Don't forget to be present, dream big, and remember that you are shaping culture right where you are. We can't wait to see you back next week.